Hi, it's Dawn. Welcome back. I'm working in my 9x12 handmade journal, and I've been working in this journal for a while now. It's starting to get full. But what I did today was with a ruler but somewhat free-handed, I made this grid. And by freehand, I mean I just didn't measure out the squares. I eyeballed it. And I've got some paint left on this palette, and I just thought I would paint some squares and use up some of these paints. And I've got a little angle shader here. It's a quarter or one quarter. You can get it at Hobby. And I just thought I would play with this. I don't know if I'm going to like this brush or if I'm going to want to switch to a round. We're going to find out here in a minute. This is Indanthrone blue. Well, it's a mixture of something else in Indanthrone, but oopsie, went over. Well, that's just kind of how I do. Not exactly precise. I try to be. In my next life, maybe I'll be precise. And I'm just leaving the pencil marks. I love blue and green. This is good practice for... Didn't leave much of a gap there, did I? Well, that's partially why I do this. Just good muscle memory. The paper I'm using is Strathmore 400 series, which means it's cellulose in part. Or not in part, it's wood pulp. It's not 100% cotton paper. So it'll take watercolor fairly well. It just won't take a whole lot of scrubbing. But we're not going to do any scrubbing today. Today we're just going to be making squares. Here, I should probably bring this down a bit more. That was way too high in the sky there, wasn't it? Oopsie. Right now I'm working my way through some watercolor books. And one of them wants me to use a shader all the time. Like this. And so I thought that I would practice this pattern, this watercolor pattern, this grid, this, I don't know, swimming pool. What do you want to call this? I'm not sure. Just give my wrists some, and my fingers and hands and muscles some practice. It's also a good warm-up too for this workbook I'm working through. It's a book by Daniel Donaldson. It's not new. It came out in 2015, I think, 10 years old. But and I've done stuff from it before, but I kind of cherry picked through it before, and now I'm going back through it, and I'm just going to work all the exercises front to back, all the chapters rather. And she loves using a shader, so I'm going to use a shader, I hope. This particular pattern is probably going to take a couple of hours. But the goal here is to make a pattern that you like, that's fun, and get a little practice in, and then later I'll scan it and use it in other projects. I'll print it out on cardstock, or maybe I'll print it out on lightweight copy paper, or even watercolor paper, just depending on what my project is. I might even pull it into Procreate and do other things with it there. Manipulate it, add some more things to it. It's just a place to get started. And there's no rush, there's no race to finish this, so. Yep, and I grabbed a little bit of that green just now, just to throw a little. Throw a little color in there. Well, one of the things I try to do when I was doing this with another project is now my goal is to try to use up this palette so that it's ready for a new project whenever I'm ready to do something new, whether it's a new color palette or whether it be acrylic or watercolor or gouache, it doesn't matter. Now my goal is now mentally will be, how can I use up this palette? Because watercolor is so expensive. I buy mine all in tubes, and it does last you a while, but I just hate wasting it. Ooh, gosh, I gotta quit hitting the camera like that. I'm so sorry. I probably ought to raise it up just a little so I don't keep hitting it with my brush. There we go. And I still hit the wire. Oh well. Well, hello, Indanthrone Blue. There you are. My goal here is to make squares. And that's a pretty neat square. That one, not so much. The other thing I'm trying to do too when I'm doing this is not leave these puddles, is to paint the squares where there's no, where my water control is such that I'm not leaving a puddle afterward. I mean, that has its place too, of course, the puddles, I mean. But like that square, great. That square, great. That one, bleh, blew me. And that's just practice. And I was trying to paint squares not too long ago, and I was using a flat brush, but I found that I couldn't get very clean starts and stops. The shader does a better job for me. My skill set does better with the shader than it does with a flat. But if you're in possession of both, try them both and see how you do. See, that's got too much water sitting on it. It's gonna dry with a funny bloom on it. The green one sure looks funny sticking out there, but it's alright, I'll throw some more green ones in here just to balance it out. Well, it's not green, it's just a little bit of green mixed in with that blue. I'll do it right now, actually. Oh, didn't pick up much, did I? There we go. That's pretty good. Sorry if my hand was in the way for that one, wasn't it? Not very nice. Now let's try doing it sideways this time. Instead of top down, let's go left to right. Yeah, I have to clean that up. That wasn't pretty. Just feel like it's gonna flick on me and then splatter paint everywhere if I try to move it the way my wrist wants to move it. I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but like when I'm going down this way and then I go across and then I kind of want to go down again and then go back this way. I just feel like a rubber band is gonna kind of thing with it, and I won't have the control that I'm looking for. See, that was way too much water. That was better. I think that's part of learning your brush too. How much water can it hold? Or how much water do you want for the space you're working in? But my style is more illustrative and whimsical anyway. So, you know, to have the blooms or to have the, you know, the imperfections from the water, that's fine for me, because that's really who I am as an artist. Very Beatrix Potter meets Dr. Seuss. Wonky is okay. I'd say these are about, I don't know, a little better than a ½ inch, right? Let's see. No, right at ½ inch. It's about ½ inch squares / rectangles. I suppose you can make these squares any size you want. Too small and they're going to be just tedious as heck. Too big, I think they would dry out on you. But your mileage will vary, so do what makes you happy. And I may or may not erase these pencil lines when I'm done. I probably will. Or at least knock them back a little. That was a nice square. See? Only took me 3 rows. The pigment water ratio is very nice right now. See, that was a nice one too. Okay. And I'm sure if I was using 100% cotton paper, this would be an even better exercise, but here we are. I have all this paper in my stash, and I'm trying to make, not trying, I'm using my stash mantra. It's trying not to buy any art supplies in 2025. I know, tall order. But I went back and I looked at my art supply purchasing as a consumer in 2024. And I wasn't shocked by it, but my thought was, how much of this did I buy because I wasn't sure if I had, we'll use paper, whether I had paper or not. Well, of course I have paper. But, you know, my thought is to be less of a consumer. I think there's a lot of people kind of feeling that right now. And it's good to stop and evaluate. Am I consuming just for consuming's sake, or am I consuming because I truly am out and or need? And I'm trying to be a better, more conscientious consumer. That's the phrase I've been trying to dig in for. Conscientious consumer. I consume consciously. That one turned out really nice, except that little blurb that keeps spinning around at the bottom. I wonder if I can get that off though once I get my brush a little drier. I wonder. And the goal to me right now is not to fill this page, although that's a secondary goal. My goal is to actually work on the muscle memory and the paint to water ratio understanding, to know my art supplies better, because it's really less about the art supplies, meaning you can buy the most expensive brush and the most expensive paper and the most expensive pigments, but I have seen very talented artists use school supply grade product, you know, paints and brushes and ink pens and a Bic ballpoint pen. I've seen some of the most beautiful pieces created with some of the most basic art supplies. So then it really comes down to not about the products, but about the mastery of the artist. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm working on my own mastery by painting these patterns and by exercising this level of patience, which I will tell you in previous years, I would not have had the patience to do this. I would have thought it ridiculous and lacking, and you know, point, what's the point kind of thing would have been my attitude, and then slapped through it and said, okay, good enough. Which is probably why my art style is a bit more whimsical and illustrative, because I never had the patience for realism in the past. And maybe over time that will change, where I'll get into realism, but for the moment I really enjoy the the illustrative style. Yeah, I'm finding a rhythm to this now. My squares are becoming more consistent, if you can tell. That's very it's very gratifying, and to me, also too, I'm figuring out this brush a little bit better, how to slide it around. That doesn't hurt, does it? No, it doesn't. Consistency. Doing something every day. It's my goal. I don't always make it. Oh yeah, that row turned out very nice. I don't dislike the other rows, but I'm learning what I can and can't do, and I find that bracing my hand on my other hand is actually being very helpful. Ooh, too much water. It's all right. Okay, it's getting paler, so I probably ought to pick up some more pigment here. Probably ought to throw some green in here in a minute too. Here's a green one, or a muddy blue. Remind me of little mosaic tiles. I think I would get into mosaics if it weren't the little hole nail on a chalkboard kind of feeling when you're cutting into those tiles. Makes my teeth sit on edge. This is very meditative, of course. Some people, like Willow Wanders, I love watching her stuff. She does patterns because for her it is a very meditative act, and it really helps her calm down the monkey mind. She doesn't call it monkey mind, I call it that, and I understand it because I may or may not suffer from that at times as well. But it allows you to get, I mean, you really have to be here present when you're doing this. You can't be thinking about dinner or your grocery list or if the laundry's done. You just have to be very mindful, very in the moment. What is it Tim says? Remember the now. It requires you to be in the now. I meant Tim Holtz, for anybody that didn't know. I'm a big fan. Big fan. Alright. These are less consistent, but I was playing with some green and other things, so I feel myself speeding up a little bit, which I don't want to do. I have to remind myself to slow down. Excuse me. Not always easy. The other thing too is when you're doing things like these grids or any kind of patterns, it is absolutely okay to just pause and come back to it. Maybe you only want to do it for 10 or 15 minutes at a time as you get into your studio in the morning, and just give yourself a little flow session like this to get your day started. A lot of artists do that. They do they'll do a quick sketch, or they'll do some warm-up exercises like this. This is the perfect warm-up exercise. Then you do a little more tomorrow, right? It's a great warm-up exercise. Start from this end this time. Some of my lines are darker than others, and that's just a product of the pencil going down on the paper and pushing, or it not touching very hard in some spots, but I don't fix it. It's more of a guideline than roadmap than a hard line. I also like doing these in various washes. As you can see, I'm not putting a real dark blue here, and that kind of looks nice next to the dark stuff. It gives your eyes, I don't know, something interesting to look at, I suppose. Somebody somewhere with an art degree could probably explain it better than me, but I just know that when it's not all the same, my eye likes to take it all in. Yeah, definitely feeling more comfortable with the brush as I use it. Excuse me. It's allergy season. But you know what? I think I live in a place where it's always allergy season of one kind or another. There we go. All right, that looks good. I've shifted back to just bracing on the paper again, instead of bracing on my hand like I was doing before. Now here I am bracing on my hand. I'm like resting my wrist on my fingers and my pinky on my other pinky. Trying to decide if there's a technique here that gives me a better outcome. I'm not so much focusing right now on the pigment as I'm focusing on the shape. It kind of lets me be up and above. I don't know. I think maybe both work. So now I'm back to just paper only. But now I'm putting my pinky down on the paper to steady it. Brush is a little dry. A little dry. As I go, I keep having to add water just because, you know, the air conditioner, and it just dries up. There's a lot of water there to begin with. I don't tend to mix up a big batch of a color. I tend to just reactivate a little bit that's sitting there and then just keep adding water as the water dries. Wow, that's a pretty box. It just, I wonder if I fiddle around with this puddle, if I can make the puddle disappear. Oh no, I don't think so. I think it just kind of just moves from side to side. I'm just wondering if by doing that, if I could get rid of some of the lines. And I think I did a little bit, but I created new lines. So trading one for another, I suppose. Isn't that true of life? Trade one set of problems for a different set. You change jobs, or you move, or you whatever.
Your coffee's ready.
Ooh, and my coffee's ready. We love that. No better words in the English language. I confess I haven't used much of Indanthrone blue. I only bought it in the little 5 milliliter tube. I think I bought it a couple of years back. I know I bought it a couple of years back. I think it was right after the pandemic. And Joann's was doing a, this one particular Joann's I was visiting, I was out of town actually. And they were, I don't know, changing their colors, or you know how they just decide to discontinue some SKUs and carry others, and this was like in the clearance section, and I thought, well, it's Daniel Smith, can't go wrong with that. But this is a great opportunity now. So yeah, I've had it in my stash 5 years, give or take. I remember having to, I was out of town, I remember having to decide if I was willing to wait. It was in the heat, it was in the summer, and I had to stand outside and wait because there's only so many people could be in the store at the time. And so I debated going in, but I needed something else. And then I swung through the, you know how you do, you swing through and look at the clearance. And I picked up this and a Quin Gold, which was also 5 milliliters, which, oh, how I wish I picked up more. It's technically quinacridone nickel azo gold. And some other things. But Quin Gold, I know. That color I'm very familiar with. But this color, Indanthrone blue, I was not familiar with at all. And I'm still only partially aware of it. I mean, meaning it's not a natural color. It's not a color I naturally reach for, I mean. But I was doing a project recently and I thought, I haven't even cracked this tube open, and I need this true royal indigo, not royal, like denim indigo deep blue, and so I pulled it out and used it. But now, of course, I've got all this left over, as one does. It's a nice blue. It's very potent though. The pigment is very intense. I just grabbed a little bit now. I know it's going to be deep, but that's okay. I like having a value difference between the squares and not having them all the same color. Yeah, I think I like posing on my hand or propping up on my hand a little bit better. And I think, I was thinking about this earlier, that for this pattern I'm going to do blue into green. I've got some Cascade green sitting on this palette left over from that previous project, and I think I'm going to have it ombre the blue into the green, which is another reason that it's good to have a little bit of this muddy blue-green mix in here, because then it'll make sense. It'll look intentional. Hopefully, anyway. This is a fairly new palette, meaning less than 2 weeks old, with new paints put in it. And I've got my windows closed because it's air conditioning season again, because summer junior is quickly morphing into summer. And I still have schmutz in my palette, dust, debris. Aggravating. Even when you try to do better, you still end up with debris. Debris. Okay, squares are coming along. The muscle memory is being learned, at least hopefully. Ooh, it's a lot of blue, but here we go. Oh no, my thumb, my wrist just smudged into that. Dang it, should have paid better attention. One of these days I'm going to make a handmade journal with handmade paper. At the moment, as I mentioned, I've been using up my Strathmore 400 series just because it's in my stash, and I'm really trying to use stuff. But I really would like to do a journal of handmade paper, and I will. But I don't own any. That was my point. I don't own any. And I'm not sure that I want to make my own paper with watercolor paper. I mean, I've played around with back in the day when you threw in, petals and got out your blender, but watercolor paper, I don't know, or cotton paper, I don't know if I'm ready to tackle that just yet. So I'm trying to make myself use up what I've got before I go buying more stuff. And I've got a bunch of paper. That's one of my goals is to make a sketchbook eventually with some handmade paper. Ooh, that's going to be strong. This book I made here, I made years ago from a tutorial, I think it's on YouTube, by a gal from France. Her name is Lally Millie. L-A-L-Y, I think is how you spell her first name. And then, and she is a fantastic teacher if you're looking to make your own book, your own journal rather. She's got a pretty easy tutorial to follow. Excuse me, on YouTube, and you can just grab paper and it's in your stash, and you too can have a handmade journal. And then you get the lovely decision of how to cover it. That's always been my hardest part. What to put on the cover. And then, of course, breaking the white pages on the inside was hard. I found that if I skipped to like halfway through the book, I'd do better. When I'm dealing in a journal, don't start on the first page. That first page is a bit intimidating for me, as is, I think, for a lot of people. So I skip to halfway through, or whatever. I just turn to another page and get started. Ooh, got a big chunk of pigment there, didn't I? I'm just gonna leave it though. It's gonna draw your eye to it, but just means I need to do another super dark one somewhere else, I think. But like I could go back up here fairly easily. Let's see if we can do it now before I forget. And just go over this one and make it super dark. Actually grab a little bit more. I'm not even sure that's dark enough. All right, let's try a little bit more. And then let's grab another one and do another one. Let's do it in threes, right? Everything's in odd numbers. Let's go up here on this top row, about here. because this is already dried, it's going to be fairly easy to glaze over it like that. See? And now it creates a triangle. And you can continue on your way. And about halfway down, I think. Oh, made a mess of that. So I'm not quite halfway here. Maybe another row or two, and then I'll start the green. I'll start transitioning to green. I love Cascade Green because it's got such a nice granulation to it. It gives you so many greens, and you know, you get 4 for the price of 1 kind of thing. So you get this nice little muscle memory thing happening, and before you know it, you start doing this faster. Well, again, speed is not the goal, and getting to the end is not necessarily the goal, but it is nice when you finish something, I think. Ooh, that line is fainting, isn't it? Yeah. Well, we're just going to go for it. I don't want to redraw it. I really am the type of person that I need guidelines to get a consistent shape, or to get a consistent pattern. I don't do well when there's too much free form. Another thing I'm noticing about this brush is if it gets too dry, this little tip piece right here gets its own little like alfalfa moment going on. As long as it stays nice and soupy, it seems to behave pretty well. Pretty sure this is Synthetic Squirrel. And I got this brush at Hobby years ago. It's part of their Master's Touch line. But these brushes are on sale like every other week for like 40% off or 50% off or whatever. So if you are looking for a new brush, again, I'm trying not to buy any new brushes or any new anything for that matter. Because if I counted up the number of brushes, it's probably in the 3 digits. I probably have well over 100 brushes between acrylic and watercolor. Because every time I go and they'd be on sale, I'd pick up 1 or 2. Well, you do that once a week for, I don't know, 10 years. You start accumulating a few brushes. Because when they were on sale, I'd pick up 2 or 3, and well, maybe it wasn't every week, it'd be every other week. Yeah, I've always said, and I still say to this day, there's 2 hobbies, the collecting and the doing. The collecting of the art supplies and the using of the art supplies. Fortunately, I'm really good at the collecting. I'm not as proficient at the doing. I just have perfectionism issues and white page syndrome, and these patterns are easier for me though because there's no, like, you know, sunset, beach scene, bird in a tree, still life of a fruit bowl. There's no obvious goal here, no obvious outcome, and so whatever the outcome is, it is, and people either like it or they don't, and call that abstract, call that whatever. I do better with that. Anyway, I'm not a realistic painter anyway. At least not yet. Maybe I will someday. Maybe I'll try my hand at realism. But for the moment, this makes me happy. Might be time to switch to that green. I am still going to add some blue into it though. Just like I have the green in here and there, or the muddy green. And pigmented paints, or granulating paints, I'm sorry. Of course they're pigmented, they wouldn't be paints if they weren't. Granulating paints are such a different creature compared to flat paints like this, flat pigments like this. Because flat pigments, other than the intensity of the value, are very predictable, very consistent. All right, let's wake up the green. Let's see what we get. So pretty. Cascade green might be one of my favorite, most favoriteest greens. I like pretty much all greens that are earthy and muted. Like this. I just dipped my brush into the blue. For that square, I'll dip it in one more time. Don't want a hard line transition, so I may do some more blues, like, you know, feathering down that way, and I might do some more feathering here too. Excuse me. But I do want there to be a transition. Oh, that ended up darker than I thought it would be. See how I'm leaning back towards the blue now. And then I'm going to probably just throw in a rogue green right about here. And I mean, I'm going to put it pretty strong. Just like that. And I'm not washing my brush out in between, as you can see. I'm just, whatever green is left or whatever blue is left. That's why it's good to use colors next to each other on the color wheel when you do this, because if you use orange and blue, for instance, you're going to get mud. But green and blue, because they're cousins on the color wheel, they're right next door to each other, you're going to get harmonious blend. It's pretty. I'm going to start phasing out the blue little by little, but I'm going to keep making the blue show up, because part of an ombre is it doesn't just instantly transition with a hard line. And actually, ombre's like a lightning, truly, from a color from its most mass tone or its brightest down to a pale tone. But what I mean is, I like doing a transition of the color where it just feels like it flows. I don't know how to describe it. I just know I like it. At some point, I have to reposition this camera or this book, or both. I guess that's why I call this technique a feather technique, because it's like you're like when they redo floors, wooden floors, and they feather in the old floors with where they've had to put new stuff in. They put the new stuff in, and they almost make a hard line. They take out enough to transition it where it looks intentional, where it's less obvious where the old stops and the new begins. That's kind of my goal here as well. Where does the blue really stop? Well, it kind of stops here. And where does the green start? Well, it kind of starts there. It's kind of a weird explanation, but wow, I love that combination. Ooh, it's beautiful. Now that I have these vibrant squares in the blue, I'll continue them with the green, so that that whole punch of color is existing throughout the piece. And right now I'm still doing kind of a mixture of the blue and the green, but as I get further down, it's going to be less and less blue. And if you're just getting started, you can use a plate from your kitchen as long as it's ceramic or something made of natural material that has a coating on it. You don't, I mean, you can use plastic plates, but then you don't want to use it for eating again. But if you're using like an old saucer, in fact, some people I know go to the dollar, myself included, go to the dollar store, or they go to thrift stores and they just pick up white plates. Now what you're going to find is that some of them have a natural dip in the middle, either where the cup is supposed to go or just the way the manufacturer shaped that plate. And some are going to be quite flat. Like I know some of the plates at Walmart, for instance, that I've been using, been playing around with, they're like $2 plates. They look flat until you get liquid in them, and then they've got a divot in the middle. It looks like a salad. It looks like a salad plate or a dessert plate, but it's got a small divot. So you start putting water around the edge, and it runs to that middle. And that's okay, but you aren't going to know that standing in the middle of a store, because unless you just take a thing of water, sit there and wait for it to do something, I suppose. But all right, I'm going to add a heavy green here. Probably should have moved it over one so it wasn't right under that one, but that's okay. And now I'm going to kind of head back towards the blue a little bit. That's part of that feathering, is the back and forth, like the cha-cha. A little bit of blue, a little bit of green. Ooh. The palette I'm using today is actually from Easter. It's an egg container. It's a ceramic egg holder. It's got 12 little egg wells. I'd show you, but it's just, all right, fine, I'll show you. See? And I'm just, here's my green and there's my blue, and just grabbing colors out of it. I'm just mixing them up in these various egg wells, and I don't know if I like it or not, but before I put it away for Easter, I pulled it in here to play with it a little bit to see. I had other ones, but they're colored, and I wasn't always sure I would be confident. See, I have this one, it's purple. And I've had this for years. I think this, came from TJ Maxx 100 years ago. And then this guy, also from, I think, from TJ Maxx 100 years ago. But I was worried, and I'm using that term loosely, that the fact that it isn't white or a light color was going to throw off how I perceived the colors. So, yeah, I didn't use it. All right, I used it a little bit, but then when I saw this one, this beige one, sand colored one, whatever, I thought, okay, let me play around with that one for a palette and see if I like it. And I don't know. On the one hand, I like it better than plates because when you stack them, they don't touch each other so much. But on the other hand, they're a bit clunky. Take up a lot of room. A small saucepan or a small salad plate that doesn't take up much room at all, or dessert plate or coffee saucer, coffee cup saucer. Doesn't take up much room at all. So your mileage may vary. Do what makes you happy. I saw someone on YouTube not so long ago, and I don't remember who it was, who was painting these squares. Then they went on to draw on top of them. It was just a background piece for them, which they went on to do like Zentangles on top. But anyway, they had no watermarks in them whatsoever, and I thought, man, meaning they dried without the least hint of a line other than the box. And as you can see, I may have 3 but that are like that, but that's okay. All right, let's grab a little more blue over here. The other thing I do too is I have a little spiral bound watercolor book that's from 5 and Below off to the side. And if I decided at any point that I'm like, I got blue on this and green and I want to start over, I just wipe it off on that book. You feel free to dip it in the water and clean it. But what I like to do when I make this have this little book off to the side is that later I will fill that up with just random squiggles and off not off prints, what am I trying to say, off strokes or a clean off sheet. I'll take my clean off sheet later and I'll do stuff with that. It's kind of fun. Beats the heck out of throwing it down the drain. And everybody's got some cheap watercolor paper laying around, whether it be from the dollar store or Walmart or the 5 and Below or whatever. Just have it handy. And when I'm using my Poscas, I get my Poscas flowing on it when I'm doing acrylic or gouache. I scrub off. I do like a dry brush, scrub the brush off before I hit it with water, and I get some pretty neat stuff from that. I don't mind telling you. And I have no doubt that if I spend a little more time, a little more care doing these squares, I could get the same no water bloom effect. And that might be my next exercise, is to go go for the, right now I'm kind of practicing the shape and the muscle memory of that shape. But the next exercise probably will be to get a balanced square. Because I think it's probably just about sitting here and going back and forth like I'm doing right now. Just moving that water around, or moving that color, that pigment around, that water around, until it finally, so we're going to come back to that one in a second and see how that dried, if that did the trick I'm hoping it might do just by chasing it around the page. But I'm back to practicing my alright, now I'm going to lean pretty heavy into the greens. The green, not plural. Okay, so looking at it already, I can see it did dry pretty well, but it's still some squigglies around the edges. Oh well. Alright, so let's try that experiment again. Let's do it with this one. Let's see if we can get a consistent square shape, because we didn't get the bloom, but we lost the edges. The edges didn't stay crisp. So as I was moving it around the square to move the water around, I was losing the edge. Okay. Oh, I think I'm still gonna have a bloom right there. Oh well. I do think that something to be said though for when doing the shape, if you go around it a couple times. Of course, that also could lead you down the path of cutting your own bangs just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. Oh, that's not even. Oh, no, I'll make that even. Not that I would know. See, it leaves that big water line. That's what I'm trying to get rid of. My hope is if I keep going around it, that it'll soak into the page enough to not give me a line anymore. That might be the trick. Just keep going round and round. As long as your water control is, your water isn't too crazy out of control. You're not flooding it, which I'm not. We may have unlocked a new skill set. It's not exactly perfect yet, but that's why we do this, right? So the trick may be just kind of going around it 3 or 4 or 5 times without overdrawing it, and then release and pray. I overdrew that one just a little. You'll notice I didn't do any blue. Well, I did a little bit here at the beginning on this line. I'm doing less and less blue as we go. That's that whole feathering thing, which I can mind a bird repeating it on ad nauseum. Sorry. Well, because the sheet is 9 by 12, I'm going to scan it, and then I'm going to, shrink it down, obviously, reduce it in size to where it's like 8.5 by 11s. I can print it on my printer. I really been thinking about getting a large format printer, but I can't justify the expense and then the space. Shall we talk about the space of those things? Mercy. But then when I do that, when I scan it, if I need to print it, I can send it to Staples if I want to print it big. I want to blow it up. Or I can send it to Walgreens or whatever you've got near you. I mean, same idea. You don't have to. I'm not getting paid by Staples to say that. Coffee's so good. See, too much water on that one. It's just puddling all over. Well, okay, move on. Okay, not enough water on that one. We're going to finish it. Oh, no, we're not. Okay, we've got about 4.5 rows left, and we are on the home stretch. This is awkward. I might need to move this over. Reach a little bit better. I'm reaching across, and but you just got to keep adjusting. Sometimes I twist the book or the pad I'm working on, the paper, because that feels easier at times than to to do anything else. I like turning stuff. I often turn stuff. I try not to when I'm filming, but sometimes I can't help it. This mossy green is so delicious. I may have mentioned it's my favorite, because it is. Well, I just like earthy mossy greens. They're beautiful. And UnderSea Cascade green is a great one. No, UnderSea green. Why did I say Cascade? It's UnderSea. I had to go pick it up and look at it. It's UnderSea. Silly me. I often confuse those two. And I know the people that use them on the regular would be like, how could you? Because neither one of them make me think of what the name is. So it feels very arbitrary. So therefore, yeah, there you go. Just like I had some green up here, now I'm putting some blue down here. Continuity. Also make sure I move around the page. Starting to dry up over here. Keep a little pipette handy often, so I could just drop the teeniest bit of water in there and keep going. Grab a little blue. Have some blue over here. Not one much blue. Turn this way so I can see it a little better. Besides, I think in all greenery you can see a little blue undertone anyway, right? Fairly common, I think. And since that's a lot bluer than I was expecting, what I might do is go up top and put a green, a really more solid green rather than a muddy, murky green. I'll show you here in a second. Let me get some of this blue out of this brush first. Alright, so then let's take a really strong green. And let's scooch this down just for a second, and then for kicks and giggles, let's put the green right here. Yep. That's called glazing. You probably already know that, but could be somebody watching that has no idea. Glazing is when you put a second layer over a dry layer. And depending on the previous layer and the layer you're using, sometimes you'll see the blue through the green in that case, and sometimes the green's going to completely obliterate the blue and you'll have no idea that the blue was there before. But because these are all green blue-ish in the family, even if it kind of shows through, it's okay, because it's all one big happy family. One would hope. You'll see it doesn't take much pigment at all to make these little mosaic squares happen. In fact, I vacillate between really enjoying the highly pigmented, high contrast of squares or colors, and in my book I've explored both in the sketchbook, and that's the whole point to me of having a sketchbook is, I have some really high contrast and high saturation, look at that one. That is a super high saturation of color. There's another one I was thinking of that I was going to show you. Nope. Oh, that one's pretty bright, but where is it? There. I mean, come on. That is the mass tones all out on parade. And then sometimes these colors, this muted, this green almost reminds me of like a succulent color. I'm experimenting now with, pulling some of that water back up to try to get a more even tone in the square, in the mosaic. The other thing I like to do is where I've got a whole bunch of like muted colors here, then I like to go in with a little darker color here just to change things up a bit. When I was a little girl, we had this lady come and stay with us for a while. She was helping my mom out when we had a bunch of littles at home, and she'd come and she'd cook and do little Ms. Doubtfire, a little light housekeeping and a little light cooking. But she had 3 meals that she cooked, and they were on rotation. It was beef stew, meatloaf, and what was the third one? I can't think of it right now. But anyway, I know there was a point when I said to my mom, because I was like, I don't know, 4, 5. Could we have something other than one of those 3 things? Because it just felt like we were just having the same, and you know, you're just eating the same 3 meals. Talk about a short rotation. But that was what she felt comfortable cooking, and there were a lot of kids to take care of, and my mom needed the help, so she was there to pinch hit. It was only for, I don't know, a month, 2 months. It wasn't very long. But I was glad to get different meals in the rotation, I'll tell you what. And so I think that's kind of where this little variety of color, even though we're using just 2 colors, it's nice to have a little variety in the rotation, in the value and the strength of the color. Because unlike meatloaf, which is pretty tough to dress up, although a meatloaf sandwich isn't bad now and again, the only way you're going to get variety with 2 colors is the strength and the mixing. But as you can see, we're having some nice colors come about. It's just playing. Spaghetti, that was the other meal. Meatloaf, beef stew, and spaghetti. To this day, I still love all 3, which is shocking. But sometimes I can ruin it for you and not you have the same meal on rotation all the time. When my kids were little, I used to have a weekly or so rotation, and then I tried to expand it to a 2-week rotation. And a 2-week rotation worked better. I know people that can have a month rotation, and I think that's fabulous. I say bravo. But I also have, like, I don't know if you do, but I have like a spring, not a spring, I have like a winter, fall, winter rotation. Wow, I screwed that square up. Like, I'm not going to make beef stew in July. Can you? Sure. But I just tend not to. Or chili. I don't typically make chili in the summer. If I'm asked to, of course I will. But that feels like a fall meal, doesn't it? Whereas a wedge salad doesn't sound so great in November. I'm sure it's absolutely fine. No offense to wedge salad lovers. But it's so refreshing in the summer just to have a wedge of iceberg with some bacon and some nice a nice salad dressing on top. A little bit of sprinkle of cheese, and that's it. That's your dinner. Love that in July. But break the rules. Have breakfast for dinner. Have salad and have a wedge salad in November. Have chili in July. I think actually the chili cook-offs are often in the summer, aren't they? I've never participated in one, but seems like they're like a summer event, right? Like a barbecue, 4th of July thing. So who am I to say? Don't listen to me. I am not an expert by any means. Trying to keep these a bit more pure green. Not pure, but less blue involved. But they seem to be kind of, ooh, hello, Saturation City. Grabbed a bit more than I bargained for, I'm afraid. I was trying to change up the value. I was kind of getting sick of my meatloaf here. I like this paper because it is very lightly textured. Some papers out there have a real... Some of the papers out there have a texture that's very lined, like there's channels and canals going down it, and I am not a fan of those at all. And I have some of that paper, and I need to figure out how to use it up. But I like paper that's bumpily. That's not a word. Bumpy. Yeah, that's a word. But not the ones that have these just really big ridges that look like, I don't know, a creek bed, a dried up creek bed. But I also don't like smooth either. So this Strathmore 400 series is not smooth, but it's not super textured either. It's a nice, to my mind, it's a nice hybrid. That's what I was going with that whole speech. Okay, let's make a little bit of a dark one here. Nope, let's make that one here. I already have the pigment on my brush. I don't want to... Oh, no, I didn't. Not really. But I do like the Strathmore 400 series. It's a student grade without being crappy. Now you'll spend some money for it depending on the size of it too. Usually you can catch it on a sale like at Michael's or well, that's it these days. Joann's is gone. Hobby doesn't carry Strathmore anymore. They carry their series, which I think the old series was not great, but the new series looks like it's co-branded with Fabriano, which could be good. We'll see. I haven't really played with it too much yet. UnderSea green. I know I said Cascade earlier. For those Cascade purists, I do apologize. I hate it when people don't use the right words. So I get you. I sincerely apologize. I should have looked before I leaped. And then there were only two. I have to resist the urge to rush at this point because I'm just like, now you want to be done. You're like, okay. The last couple of rows you're going, are we done yet? Okay, so let's back up a little bit. Let's take a peek-see. Look at it as a whole. Oh yeah, that's fun. That is fun. So with a little bit of leftover paint in your palette, a ruler, and a pencil, you too can have mosaics. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see you again soon. Bye.